On this episode, something follows from the woods. A new antique bed causes chaos, and a strange stick figure terrorizes two girls. You're watching True Encounters, real paranormal stories sent in by people like you. Greetings, super horror family and guests. Here we are, a few weeks into spring, and even though there's plenty of problems that need to be fixed in the world, it really feels like spring this time. People are making plans and meeting up. Young boys and girls that transitioned into adolescence while locked inside the past 2 years will get the chance to go for walks, eat ice cream, and hold hands. Now, as magical as this is, I can't deny that things are generally safer indoors, because you never know what could be waiting for you outside, or who could be watching. With that in mind, let's read tonight's first true encounter, sent to us from our very own Princess Marlena, about something that happened last time we all had a real spring, in 2019. It was 2019. My good friend Julius Quasar and I were traveling up through North England. We had just moved from California to the East Coast the previous year. We came up the I-81, through the Mid-Atlantic, and later to central western New York State. Upon entering New York State on our second day of the trip, shortly after passing through Syracuse, New York, we felt like something was watching us from a distance. Syracuse, New York itself had a very eerie, sickening feeling to it. It was kind of a feeling one gets when passing through a terminal illness ward of a hospital. We switched over to I-11 in Adams, New York, and continued east, stopping only to fill up. The highway had a speed restriction of 35 miles per hour. We passed through very tiny, ancient upstate New England rural towns, filled with buildings that looked like little dollhouses. Many of the buildings were set right at the highway road, which was no more wide than the suburban streets back home in our neighborhood. We passed through many towns, even through the Amish communities, where people still used horse and buggy transport. And they even wore the funny outfits. I'm not sure whether they were Quaker, Mennonites, Shakers, etc., but they were among those Amish backgrounds. As we drove, we only saw a handful of cars on the road. As we passed through the towns that had seen very little progress in the past 300 or so years. It was beautiful, in a haunting way. As the day crept on, we stopped to fill the tank in Malone, New York. That's when Julius was looking around. I asked him what was wrong, and he asked if I felt like we were being watched. I told him I did. It was strange. We later discussed as he drove about how early Dutch settlers to the region of upstate New York called the area the Devil's Playground, for all the oddities that went on, the paranormal activity that they couldn't explain. For some reason, Julius was driving faster and faster without realizing it, as if he couldn't get us out of New York fast enough, though he still observed the speed limit. We came upon Rouse's Point, New York, where Lake Champlain expanded before us. We stared in awe and shock at the night and the beauty of this lake. We turned left where I-11 ended and saw a pair of signs, one pointing straight ahead and proclaimed Canada, and the other pointing east to our right and proclaiming Vermont. We wanted to see Canada, but we didn't have our passports. And Julius had a 9mm semi-automatic pistol hidden in the back cargo area of the Jeep, unloaded and disassembled per New York state law. After crossing majestic Lake Champlain over several bridges, we made our way to Vermont, and by sundown we made it to New Hampshire. Julius insisted on driving all the way down to the coast by Portsmouth, where we took a break. The next morning, we explored Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and even Kittery, Maine, which was a very lovely yet rough and tumble town, carved out into the seacoast. Not a place for those who don't like being outdoors or getting a little wet or dirty. We enjoyed walking around on the sand of Hampton Beach. It was too cold to go swimming, as it was only the first week of spring. After lunch, we drove through Massachusetts, south via I-95, then the I-90, then the I-84, and we entered Connecticut by late afternoon. At one point, we passed the off-ramp to Sandy Hook. We would have stopped to visit, but time wasn't on our side. The sun slowly began to set, and that's when a dark, mostly shapeless mass started stalking us from the woods. Every time I or Julius would turn to look at it, it would retreat, only to return when we looked away again. We would see it as we passed through or by small dollhouse building populated towns, or through thick woods with the tree lines so tall they blocked out the sunlight or even the sky. That's when the dark mass got very aggressive. I tried not to look in its direction at those times, as it seemed to be even more terrifying. Julius pulled over to a rest stop to stretch his legs, and that's when it emerged from the woods. We could faintly see the shape of the head, what looked like horns or antlers on top. It was forming limbs, such as arms and legs, but we couldn't see any details, such as eyes or facial features in general. Julius wanted to get the pistol, assemble and load it, but I talked him out of it. He agreed that it would do us no good against whatever that thing was. But he also admitted he didn't want to break Connecticut state law, since his weapons carry permit wasn't recognized there. We got back in the car and drove away. It still followed us, but then a cluster of cars waiting to turn off into Danbury came into view. And that's when the dark mass drifted away into the woods. We kept going. Julius refused to stop till we made it back to Pennsylvania. It was sundown by the time we had made it back. Julius got his gun back out and loaded it, and we stopped for the night. Julius barely slept at all, holding the pistol at the ready, jumping at small noises. After I took over the next day, he was sleeping like a log. And we got back to our neighborhood. He helped me offload my bags as he dropped me off at home, and we exchanged goodbyes. He only lives one town over from me, so we see each other often. And he got home safe. We still discuss what we felt in upstate New York, and what we had seen in Connecticut now and then. We even share our experience with others from the area. Oddly enough, they believed us, and even shared similar experiences. General George Washington had stated in some of his journal entries about him and his men witnessing similar phenomena in New England. So there is something strange going on out there. We haven't been back since, but we will never fully forget. Signed, Princess Marlena. Our next true encounter is called The Haunted Bed. Hello, Super Horror Show. I love the channel and I'm excited to share my story with you and hopefully see it in a video. My name is Diane, and it's okay to use my name. So this happened back when I was a teenager. It was 1971, and I was 14 at the time. Me and my family lived in a small farm in Virginia. I was the middle child of 3, and had an older brother and younger sister. My sister was 13, and my brother was 18. My parents were very strict, especially my mom, who hated spending money. And we weren't poor. We were pretty much a regular middle-class family. Anyway, my sister needed a new bed, so my parents went out to a thrift store and brought back an old antique bed. It was nice looking. It definitely looked used, but was still in good shape. My dad and brother moved it into me and my sister's room. My sister was very excited. Her old bed was much smaller, so this was a great day for her. The next few nights were normal. We would stay up talking most nights, eventually falling asleep much later than our bedtime, which was 8:30, thanks to our strict mom. On the third night, I was startled awake by my sister screaming. "Tammy, what happened?" I said, annoyed, figuring she had a nightmare or something. She said she felt something pulling her blankets down. and thought she saw a shadow. She could be dramatic sometimes, so I told her it was a dream and to go back to sleep. But then, a few nights later, I got up late to go to the bathroom, and when I came back in the room, I saw a shadow move across the wall by my sister's bed. She was fast asleep. I had a lot of trouble falling asleep, but eventually did. The next night we were both woken up by loud footsteps in the room. We were terrified. We couldn't see anything, but the footsteps were loud. It sounded like a man in boots walking around the room. When they finally stopped, we ran out and slept on the sofa downstairs. In the morning, my mom woke us up and was pissed we weren't in our room. We told her what happened, but she didn't believe us and told us to stay in our room. This kept happening. We would hear footsteps almost every night. Soon we were both sleeping in my bed. My sister said she could see the shadow of a man standing by the bed, and one night her bed was pulled hard. Something was not happy with us having this bed. We knew our parents wouldn't believe us, so we just tried to deal with it. Then one night my friend Jessie was over, and we were going to go out with friends, so I was in the shower, and she started pounding on the door. I let her in, and she said she was in my room and she kept hearing a knock on the wall. She figured it was my brother, so she yelled for him to cut it out. The knocks got louder, so she got up to go yell at my brother. She went to his room, but he wasn't there. When she left his room, she saw the shadow of a man in the hallway by the stairs. She was so scared. She stayed with me in the bathroom till I was done with my shower. Things continued to escalate every night. We were terrified. Not long after, my dad heard banging on the wall one night, and he came in to yell at us to keep quiet. We told him it wasn't us, but we knew he wouldn't listen. He told us to knock it off and left. It got so bad, we asked our parents to please get rid of the bed. Our mom wasn't having it, and said there's no such thing as haunted beds. My mom did not believe in ghosts or anything paranormal. Then, one night, my brother was home alone. He was downstairs listening to music, and he started hearing banging upstairs and loud footsteps. He thought someone broke into the house. He freaks out and goes and gets my dad's gun. When he got up into the hallway, he said he saw our room door slam shut. He went over and opened the room door. On the wall by the bed, he saw the man. He was so scared he shot at him. He shot several times, and the man just disappeared. When my parents got home, they found him out on the porch with the gun, shaking. He told them what happened. Of course they were furious. But they did finally get rid of that bed, thank God. And everything stopped. The bed was definitely haunted, and it was a male spirit that was not nice. Maybe the previous owner died in the bed. Who knows? Me and my sister still talk about it. Thanks for reading my story, Diane. Our next true encounter comes from California and reads, I grew up in a small town in California, and my best friend lived down the street from me. We were inseparable, calling each other sisters, and spending every waking and non-waking moment together. We spent most of our time alone at her house, as she was raised by a single parent who worked long hours. We had plenty of freaky stuff happen, mostly at her house, such as apparitions, noises, objects being moved, voices, etc., and they scared us. However, looking back, none of these seemed too nefarious, except for Stickman. This seems so ludicrously silly that I've only ever told one other person about these experiences, for fear of sounding nuts or being laughed at. Here goes. My best friend Jenny and I often spoke about paranormal activity. but it took a while of me seeing this Stickman to finally tell her about it. I kept seeing this little figure that looked exactly like a silly child's drawing of a person. A stick figure, all black, with no head. When I finally got the courage to speak up to Jenny, I told her I'd been seeing something strange, and that instead of explaining it to her, I would draw a picture of the strange creature I'd been seeing. She admitted to having seen something strange too, and we decided to separately draw an image of what we'd seen. When we exchanged drawings, they were nearly identical drawings of the Stickman. We were shocked. We spoke freely about him and our other paranormal experiences after that. We saw him often and in numerous places. He always seemed to be following us. Most often we would see him peering out at us from behind something, her couch, a neighbor's car as we took a walk, behind a shelf at a store. He was always watching in a semi-hidden state, and it seemed very sinister. I know this is strange since he had no head, but he was definitely watching us. If we happened to look directly at him, he would either disappear straight away or run away. He had a very unusual gait, kind of like an awkward puppy. The sightings usually happened when we were together, but occasionally one of us would see him alone. He was sometimes as small as a cat, and other times as large as an adult person. I can't explain why, but we both just knew, from some sort of feeling, that he was a male. And that the different sized stickmen were all one and the same creature, not different ones. We also just felt there was something sinister about him, different from other occurrences. Well, Jenny lived down the street for about 10 years. Shortly after her 18th birthday, she passed away suddenly from a heart problem that no one, not her, her parents, or doctors knew about. I'd always thought the Stickman was following me. All these years. It's only been this last year, as I was finally telling my story to my husband, that I put the pieces together and realized that since Jenny's death, I've never seen the Stickman again. What do you think? Are we crazy? Wild, childish imaginations getting away from us? Or was the Stickman something sinister? Or some kind of Grim Reaper? Wow. 3 different pairs from 3 different times and places. It's strange that after Jenny died, this Stickman stopped showing up. That does make it seem like he was more interested in her. It's also interesting that in our other 2 true accounts, people were armed. I often wonder if supernatural beings can feel us the way we feel them. Like if they can tell who's prepared to fight back, or wants to fight back. Shooting the Shadow Man in Diane's account didn't make the Shadow Man go away, and I doubt it hurt him. But I wonder if it understood her older brother's intentions, and if the bed would have stayed, I wonder if maybe that Shadow Man would have slammed less doors and walked a little quieter. Don't forget to share your thoughts with the Super Horror family in the comments. If it's your first time watching and you enjoyed this video, I hope you'll consider joining the Super Horror family by subscribing and giving this video a like. If you enjoyed hearing about these encounters, you should check out the True Encounters playlist to make sure you've seen them all. It's available here. Or, if you'd like to see a mini documentary on the most haunted island in the world, please click here. Till next time, Super Horror family, you are very important, so take good care of yourself.